Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the observation window of the medical facility, watching another transport shuttle depart from the Kepler 442b colony surface. The ship carried 30 more victims of the Crimson Fever, their bodies wrapped in biocontainment shrouds. In 3 months, the mysterious disease had claimed over 12,000 colonists from what had been humanity's most successful outer rim settlement. The fever struck without warning, turning healthy adults into convulsing shells within 72 hours. Children lasted even less time. The pathogen seemed to target neural pathways specifically, causing violent seizures before complete organ failure. Sarah had watched helplessly as her medical team dwindled from exhaustion and infection, despite their protective protocols. "Doctor, we have another transmission from the Galactic Medical Consortium," announced Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the communications station. His face showed the strain of sleepless weeks coordinating evacuation efforts while maintaining quarantine procedures. Sarah turned from the window, noting how the young officer's hands trembled slightly. The stress was affecting everyone. "Put it through, Lieutenant." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the familiar blue-scaled visage of Consortium Administrator Vextar. The Zeltharian bureaucrat's expression remained typically neutral, though Sarah detected a hint of irritation in his golden eyes. "Dr. Chen, I regret to inform you that the medical assistance we promised has encountered additional regulatory delays," Vextar announced in his precisely modulated voice. "The Galactic Health Authority requires further documentation regarding the pathogen's classification before authorizing intervention." Sarah felt her jaw clench. "Administrator, we've submitted every biological sample, genetic analysis, and progression report you've requested. Our people are dying while your committees debate paperwork. I understand your frustration, Doctor, but protocols exist for good reason. A pathogen this aggressive could threaten multiple species if mishandled. The estimated timeline for approval is now 6 to 8 standard weeks." 6 weeks? Sarah's voice rose despite her professional training. "We'll lose another 4,000 people in 6 weeks. Maybe more." Vextar's image remained impassive. "The consortium takes all necessary precautions to protect galactic health. Your colony knew the risks of settling in uncharted space. Resources must be allocated responsibly." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Sarah staring at the empty holographic field. Around the command center, her remaining staff exchanged grim looks. They all understood the unspoken message: humanity's newest colony was expendable in the eyes of galactic bureaucracy. "Doctor," Webb called softly, "there's an encrypted transmission coming through on the emergency Earth frequency." Sarah moved to the communications console, inputting her authorization codes. The message that appeared made her heart race with desperate hope. The Earth Colonial Authority had received their distress calls. More importantly, they were sending immediate assistance. But, as Sarah read the technical specifications of the incoming relief force, her brow furrowed in confusion. The manifest listed ship classifications that made no sense for a medical mission: heavy cruisers, destroyers, carrier vessels, and battle frigates. Either someone had made a serious clerical error, or Earth was planning something the Galactic Medical Consortium wouldn't appreciate. 3 days later, long-range sensors detected the first ships emerging from hyperspace at the system's edge. Sarah watched the tactical display with growing amazement as dozens of contacts appeared, their energy signatures blazing across the detection grid like angry stars. "Ma'am," sensor operator Jackson reported, his voice tight with disbelief, "I'm reading 47 vessels in the approaching fleet. Classification indicates heavy military configuration." Sarah studied the sensor data, noting the massive power outputs and weapon signatures. This wasn't a medical convoy. This was a battle fleet that could challenge the combined forces of 3 star systems. Yet somehow, impossibly, they were here for the colony. Lieutenant Webb's communications console erupted with incoming transmissions from multiple sources. The Galactic Medical Consortium was demanding explanations. The local Zeltharian patrol fleet was requesting human intentions. Border monitoring stations were relaying emergency alerts to their respective governments. But, cutting through all the diplomatic chatter came a clear, strong voice on the colony's emergency frequency: "Kepler 442b colony, this is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. Medical assistance is en route." Sarah keyed her microphone with trembling fingers. "Admiral Torres, this is Dr. Sarah Chen, Chief Medical Officer of the colony. We have confirmed reports of a Galactic Consortium quarantine zone blocking access to our system." "Copy that, Doctor." Be advised that quarantine zones established without proper Earth colonial authority coordination are not recognized by our government. We are proceeding to your location as planned. The communication channel crackled with interference as Admiral Torres continued. Dr. Chen, I need you to understand something very clearly. When Earth colonists call for help, we answer that call. Every time. Without exception. No bureaucrat in the galaxy gets to decide whether human lives are worth saving. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face as she watched the approaching fleet's formation tighten into battle order. These weren't just ships coming to help, they were Earth's declaration that humanity would protect its own, regardless of galactic politics or alien disapproval. Admiral, Sarah managed, the consortium ships have been maintaining a blockade at the system's perimeter for weeks. They have authorization from the Galactic Health Authority. Doctor, I've been fighting for 30 years to keep human colonies safe. I've seen what happens when we rely on alien bureaucracy for protection. Today, the consortium is going to learn why Earth doesn't ask permission to save its citizens. The fleet continued its approach, and Sarah could see on the tactical display how their formation was designed for maximum intimidation. The heavy cruisers formed a spearhead, with destroyers flanking in attack position. Behind them, the larger vessels maintained defensive screens while advancing with obvious hostile intent. As the hours passed, Sarah watched the galactic response unfold. Zeltharian patrol ships scrambled to intercept but quickly fell back when they realized the scale of the human force. Emergency diplomatic channels buzzed with demands, threats, and ultimatums from a dozen different species. But Admiral Torres maintained course, her fleet cutting through space toward the quarantine zone like a sword aimed at the heart of galactic complacency. For the first time since the plague began, Sarah felt genuine hope. Earth hadn't sent medical ships because medical ships could be turned away by bureaucrats with legal authority. Instead, Earth had sent a message written in gunmetal and reactor fire. Human colonies were under Earth's protection, and that protection came with enough firepower to enforce it against anyone who disagreed. The consortium was about to learn that sometimes the best medicine was delivered by battleships. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood on the bridge of the EDF Olympia, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she studied the tactical hologram floating before her command chair. The quarantine zone appeared as a red sphere surrounding the Kepler 442 system, marked with the energy signatures of 12 consortium enforcement vessels maintaining their blockade positions. Admiral, we're receiving multiple hails from the consortium fleet, reported Communications Officer Patel, her voice steady despite the tension crackling through the bridge. They're demanding we halt our advance and submit to inspection protocols. Torres smiled grimly, remembering similar demands from her early career when pirates tried to board colonial authority transports. The answer then had been the same as it would be now. Ignore them, Commander. Signal the fleet to maintain formation and continue approach. Captain James Morrison, Torres's flag captain, moved to her side with a concerned expression. Admiral, we're about to violate a legally established quarantine zone. The political ramifications could be significant. Jim, I've been breaking unjust laws since before you were commissioned, Torres replied, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. The day I let alien bureaucrats decide which human colonies deserve protection is the day I turn in my uniform. The fleet continued its advance, 47 ships moving in perfect formation toward the quarantine perimeter. Torres had handpicked every vessel and crew for this mission, choosing captains she knew would follow her through hell if necessary. Today, they might have to prove that loyalty. Admiral, Sensor Chief Rodriguez called from his station, the consortium vessels are powering weapons. I'm reading charging patterns on their plasma arrays. Torres felt the familiar calm that came before battle settle over her. She'd faced worse odds with smaller fleets, but never with stakes this high. 12,000 colonists were depending on her decision in the next few minutes. All ships, battle stations, she ordered. Raise shields and charge weapons, but do not lock targeting solutions unless fired upon. We're here to deliver medical assistance, not start a war. The bridge lighting shifted to red as the Olympia's crew prepared for combat. Around the fleet, 46 other ships followed suit, their energy signatures blazing brighter as defensive systems activated and weapon capacitors reached full charge. A new voice crackled through the communications system, speaking in the precise, clipped tones of consortium authority. Human fleet, this is Coordinator Thexban of the Galactic Medical Consortium Enforcement Division. You are approaching a legally established quarantine zone without proper authorization. Turn back immediately or face the consequences. Torres stepped toward the communications console, her voice carrying the authority of 3 decades commanding Earth's frontier forces. Coordinator Thexban, this is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Earth Defense Fleet. We are responding to a medical emergency involving Earth Colonial Authority citizens. We do not recognize your authority to prevent medical assistance to human colonies. Admiral Torres, the quarantine was established to prevent the spread of a dangerous pathogen that threatens multiple species. Your colonists accepted the risks of frontier settlement. The greater galactic community cannot be endangered for the sake of a few thousand humans. The casual dismissal of human lives as acceptable losses sent a surge of anger through Torres that she carefully controlled. Around the bridge, she could see her officers' faces hardening with similar rage. This was exactly the attitude that had led Earth to establish its own defense forces instead of relying on galactic protection. Coordinator, I'm going to explain something very clearly, Torres said, her voice dropping to the dangerous quiet that her officers recognized as a warning. Those few thousand humans are citizens of Earth. They called for help, and Earth answered. No alien bureaucrat gets to decide that human lives are expendable. Admiral, you are violating established galactic law. The Health Authority has jurisdiction in matters of quarantine. If you proceed, you will face consequences from the entire consortium. Torres looked at the tactical display, noting how the consortium ships were spreading into a defensive formation. They were clearly preparing for a confrontation, but their positioning showed they expected the humans to back down when faced with superior legal authority. That was their first mistake. All ships, this is Admiral Torres, she announced on the fleet-wide channel. In approximately 15 minutes, we will reach the quarantine perimeter. Our mission is to deliver medical assistance to the Kepler 442b colony. Any vessel that attempts to prevent us from completing this mission will be considered hostile. Captain Morrison leaned close to her ear. Admiral, are we really going to fire on consortium ships? The political fallout could isolate Earth for decades. Torres turned to face her flight captain, her expression showing the steel that had made her Earth's most respected fleet commander. Jim, I want you to understand something. Every species in this galaxy looks at humans and sees expendable primitives. They tolerate us when we're useful and sacrifice us when we're inconvenient. Today, we show them that human lives have value, and that value is backed by human guns. The fleet continued its advance, and Torres watched as the consortium vessels began moving to intercept. Their formation was textbook defensive, designed to create overlapping fields of fire while maintaining communication with their command authority. Admiral, Communications Officer Patel reported, I'm receiving emergency diplomatic transmissions from Earth Command. They're ordering us to halt and await further instructions. Torres felt a moment of cold satisfaction. She'd expected this message, which was why she jumped the fleet early and maintained communications silence until reaching the system. By the time Earth's politicians learned about the mission, it would be too late to stop it. Patel, our communications array seems to be experiencing technical difficulties, Torres said with a slight smile. I'm sure we'll be able to receive those messages clearly once we've completed our medical mission. The bridge crew exchanged knowing looks. They all understood that their admiral was taking full responsibility for what happened next. If the mission failed, Torres would face court-martial and disgrace. If it succeeded, she'd probably face the same fate but with the satisfaction of knowing she'd saved 12,000 lives. Admiral, the consortium fleet is hailing us again, Patel announced. Put them through. Coordinator Thexfan's voice carried obvious frustration and growing concern. Admiral Torres, our sensor readings indicate your fleet includes heavy cruisers and destroyers. This is clearly not a medical mission. What are your true intentions? Torres smiled at the question, remembering her conversation with Earth's chief medical officer before departure. Dr. Elizabeth Kane had been very specific about the type of medical assistance the colony required. Coordinator, I assure you this is purely a medical mission. We're delivering the most effective medicine Earth has developed for treating bureaucratic obstruction. Admiral, please clarify your statement. Certainly, Coordinator. We've found that a sufficient application of directed energy weapons provides remarkable therapeutic value for removing political barriers to humanitarian assistance. The communication channel remained silent for several seconds before Thexfan responded, his voice tight with anger. Admiral, you are threatening violence against consortium vessels performing their legal duties. I'm simply explaining our medical philosophy, Coordinator. When human lives are at stake, We believe in aggressive treatment of any condition preventing proper care. Torres looked at the chronometer, noting they had 8 minutes until reaching the quarantine perimeter. Around her, the bridge crew maintained professional calm, but she could sense their readiness for action. These officers had trained their entire careers for moments like this. All ships, prepare for contact, Torres announced. Remember, we're here to save lives. Don't start a fight, but if someone else starts one, make sure we finish it. The fleet maintained course, 47 ships carrying Earth's declaration that human colonies would never again be abandoned to alien indifference. The holographic communication chamber aboard the consortium enforcement vessel Rightus Authority flickered to life as emergency diplomatic protocols activated. Coordinator Thexvan found himself facing a gathering of some of the galaxy's most powerful political figures, their various forms rendered in shimmering blue light around the circular platform. Coordinator, spoke High Chancellor Mordeth of the Zeltharian hegemony, his crystalline voice carrying obvious displeasure. Explain to me how a primitive human fleet is threatening our established quarantine procedures. Thexvan's gill slits fluttered nervously as he addressed the assembly. Honored Chancellor, the Earth vessels refuse to acknowledge consortium authority. Their admiral claims they are conducting a medical mission, but their fleet composition suggests hostile intent. The Vraxian Trade Minister, her insectoid features clicking with agitation, interrupted with rapid chittering sounds before her translator rendered the words into Standard Galactic. This is unacceptable. Humans cannot be permitted to violate established protocols whenever they find them inconvenient. It sets a dangerous precedent for other primitive species. Admiral Keftar of the Consortium Defense Force, a massive Thurian whose scarred carapace spoke of decades of military service, stepped forward. His deep voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. I have reviewed the human fleet composition. 47 vessels including 6 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, and 3 carrier platforms. This represents a significant military force for a species claiming peaceful intentions. Thexvan activated his data displays, showing the tactical situation in real time. The human fleet will reach our quarantine perimeter in approximately 4 minutes. They have ignored all diplomatic protests and legal citations. Admiral Torres has made it clear she intends to proceed regardless of our authorization. High Chancellor Mordetha's crystalline features darkened with anger. This cannot be tolerated. If humans are permitted to ignore galactic law when it suits them, every minor species will believe they can challenge consortium authority. The Altarian observer, speaking through harmonic tones that translated as melodious whispers, offered a different perspective. Perhaps we should consider the human motivation. They are responding to a medical emergency involving their own species. Many cultures would find such loyalty admirable. Loyalty? The Vraxian trade minister's chittering grew more agitated. They show loyalty by threatening violence against lawful quarantine enforcement? The pathogen affecting their colony could spread to multiple worlds if mishandled. The risks are too great to accommodate human sentiment. Admiral Keftar studied the tactical data with professional interest. There is something unusual about this human response. Our intelligence suggests Earth's colonial authority typically operates through diplomatic channels. This direct military intervention represents a significant escalation in human policy. Meanwhile, aboard the EDF Olympia, Admiral Torres received her own communication from an unexpected source. Earth's Colonial Authority Director Sarah Kim appeared on the secure channel, her face showing the strain of emergency sessions with the Galactic Senate. Admiral Torres, I'm ordering you to halt your advance immediately, Director Kim announced, her voice carrying official authority. The political ramifications of this action could isolate Earth from the galactic community for generations. Torres remained focused on the tactical display, watching as consortium vessels moved to strengthen their blockade formation. Director, with respect, those political ramifications become irrelevant if we allow 12,000 colonists to die while bureaucrats debate paperwork. Rebecca, I understand your frustration, but we've made significant progress through diplomatic channels. The consortium has agreed to expedited review procedures that could approve medical assistance within 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Torres's voice carried the cold anger her officers had learned to fear. Director, in 2 weeks, we'll be shipping corpses instead of patients. The colony's medical officer estimates complete population loss within 10 days at current mortality rates. Director Kim's image flickered as the secure channel struggled with distance and interference. Admiral, you're forcing Earth into a confrontation we cannot win. The consortium commands resources from dozens of star systems. If they declare us a hostile species, human colonies throughout the galaxy could face retaliation. Torres turned to face the communication screen directly, her expression showing the determination that had made her Earth's most decorated frontier commander. Sarah, I've spent 30 years watching human colonies get abandoned whenever galactic politics demanded it. Today, we draw a line. Human lives have value, and that value is non-negotiable. Rebecca, you're risking a war we cannot afford to fight. I'm preventing a war that starts the moment we accept that human lives are expendable. Torres's voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. If the galaxy wants to treat us as a threat for protecting our own people, then maybe it's time they learned what a real threat looks like. The communication ended as Torres turned back to the tactical display. They were now 3 minutes from the quarantine perimeter, and she could see the consortium vessels beginning their final positioning. 12 ships against 47, but those 12 carried the authority of galactic law. Captain Morrison approached with a concerned expression. Admiral, we're receiving targeting locks from multiple consortium vessels. They're preparing to fire. Understood, Jim. Signal all ships to prepare defensive maneuvers but maintain course. Do not return targeting locks unless they fire first. Back on the Righteous Authority, Coordinator Thexvan faced increasing pressure from his political superiors. The emergency assembly had devolved into heated arguments about appropriate response levels, while his tactical situation deteriorated by the minute. Coordinator, Admiral Keftar announced, "You are authorized to use necessary force to maintain quarantine integrity. The human fleet represents a clear threat to galactic health security." Admiral, Thexvan replied carefully, "Our 12 vessels are significantly outnumbered. If the humans choose to engage, we cannot guarantee success." The Vraxian trade minister's chittering reached an agitated crescendo. Numbers are irrelevant when law and authority are on our side. These primitive humans must learn that consequences follow illegal actions. High Chancellor Mordetha's crystalline voice carried final authority. Coordinator Thexvan, you will stop the human fleet. If they resist, you will demonstrate that consortium authority cannot be challenged by inferior species. Thexvan closed the communication channel and turned to his tactical officer. Signal all vessels. Prepare to engage the human fleet. We will not permit them to violate the quarantine zone. Aboard the Olympia, Sensor Chief Rodriguez detected the charging energy signatures immediately. Admiral, all consortium vessels are powering weapons to full charge. They're moving to intercept positions. Torres felt the familiar calm before battle settle over her mind. She'd known this moment was inevitable from the instant she'd accepted the mission. The question was whether the consortium would actually fire on a medical mission, or if they were simply trying to intimidate her into backing down. All ships, red alert, she announced on the fleet channel. We are approaching the quarantine perimeter. Any vessel that fires on this fleet will be considered hostile and engaged accordingly. Remember, people, we're here to save lives. Let's make sure we're successful. The two fleets continued their approach toward collision, each representing a different philosophy about the value of human life and the limits of galactic authority. In less than 2 minutes, the galaxy would learn whether Earth was willing to fight for the principle that no human colony would ever again be abandoned to alien indifference. Torres looked at the chronometer and made her final decision. Helm, maintain course and speed. Communications, open a channel to the consortium fleet. She was about to deliver an ultimatum that would change the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy forever. Admiral Torres stepped forward as the communication channel opened to the consortium fleet, her voice carrying across space with the authority of someone who had never backed down from a fight she believed in. Consortium vessels, this is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have 30 seconds to clear our approach vector to the Kepler 442b colony. After that time, any vessel blocking our path to provide medical assistance will be fired upon. Coordinator Thexvan's response came immediately, his voice tight with anger and disbelief. Admiral Torres, you are threatening military action against lawfully authorized quarantine enforcement. This constitutes an act of war against the Galactic Medical Consortium. Coordinator, Torres replied, her tone dropping to the dangerous quiet that made veteran spacers nervous. You've had 3 months to provide medical assistance to dying colonists. Instead, you've provided paperwork and excuses. Earth's patience with galactic bureaucracy has officially expired. The tactical display showed both fleets now within weapons range, energy signatures blazing as targeting systems locked onto potential threats. Captain Morrison moved to Torres's side, his expression showing the mix of admiration and concern that came from serving under Earth's most aggressive commander.
"Admiral," he said quietly, "once we fire on consortium vessels, there's no going back. Earth will be marked as a hostile power."
Torres watched the countdown timer reach 20 seconds and smiled grimly.
"Jim, Earth has been treated as expendable for decades. Today we become dangerous instead. I prefer dangerous."
Aboard the Righteous Authority, Thexvan faced a choice that could define his career and potentially reshape galactic politics. His tactical officer reported targeting solutions on all human vessels, but the numbers were troubling. 47 ships against 12, with human technology that intelligence reports suggested was more advanced than officially acknowledged. "Sir," his weapons officer announced, "the human fleet is maintaining approach vector.
No deviation in course or speed." Thexvan activated the emergency channel to Admiral Keftar, who appeared as a hologram on the bridge. "Admiral, the humans are not backing down. Request permission to open fire." "Granted, Coordinator. Show these primitives what happens when they challenge proper authority."
But, as Thexvan moved to give the firing order, something on the tactical display caught his attention. The human fleet formation was shifting subtly, with several of the larger vessels moving to positions that seemed designed for protection. "Weapons officer," he called, "analyze the human fleet composition again. Something about their formation seems unusual."
10 seconds remained on Admiral Torres's ultimatum when Sensor Chief Rodriguez made an announcement that changed everything.
"Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the fleet's carrier vessels.
They're launching something, but it's not fighters."
Torres smiled as she watched the tactical display update with new contacts emerging from the carrier bays.
"Right on schedule. Signal the fleet, commence Operation Lifeline."
What launched from the human carriers wasn't fighters or assault craft. Instead, massive hospital ships emerged from concealed bays, their medical bay signatures blazing across every sensor in the system. Each vessel was the size of a heavy cruiser but packed with the most advanced medical technology Earth could provide.
Captain Morrison stared at the display in amazement. "Admiral, how did we fit hospital ships inside carrier bays?"
"Dr. Kane designed them as modular medical platforms," Torres explained, watching as 6 fully equipped hospital ships took formation behind the battle fleet. "They break down into components that fit in standard carrier storage, then reassemble in space. Each one can handle 2,000 patients with full trauma capabilities." The sight of the hospital ships had an immediate effect on both fleets. Consortium vessels hesitated as their sensors confirmed the massive medical capabilities now deployed in the system. These weren't just ships, they represented a mobile medical infrastructure that could establish permanent treatment facilities. Coordinator Thexvan's voice crackled over the communication channel, now carrying uncertainty instead of authority. "Admiral Torres, our sensors indicate you have deployed significant medical assets. This was not mentioned in your earlier communications." "Coordinator, you never asked about our medical capabilities," Torres replied with satisfaction.
"You were too busy explaining why human lives weren't worth saving. These hospital ships can treat every colonist in the system and establish permanent medical facilities. All we need is access to the colony." The 5-second mark on Torres's ultimatum approached when Admiral Keftar's voice cut through the diplomatic chatter. "All consortium vessels, open fire on the human fleet. They have violated quarantine protocols and must be stopped." Plasma beams and particle missiles erupted from 12 consortium ships, their weapons targeting the lead human vessels with lethal precision. But the human fleet's response was unlike anything the galaxy had seen from a supposedly primitive species. Point defense systems that intelligence reports had never mentioned intercepted incoming missiles with devastating efficiency. Energy shields that shouldn't have existed on human ships absorbed plasma impacts that should have crippled their targets. And return fire from human weapons proved that Earth had been very modest about their technological capabilities. "All ships, engage hostile targets," Torres commanded.
"Protect the hospital ships and clear a path to the colony." The EDF Olympia led the charge, her heavy guns targeting the Righteous Authority with precision that spoke of superior fire control systems. The first salvo punched through consortium shields like they were tissue paper, sending the Zeltharian vessel spinning away with massive hull breaches. Around the battle space, the fight became a demonstration of why Earth had quietly been building a military force that could challenge galactic powers.
Human ships moved with coordination that suggested advanced tactical networks.
Their weapons hit targets that should have been impossible to lock onto.
And their defensive systems made them nearly immune to consortium fire.
Within 15 minutes, 8 consortium vessels had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining 4 were attempting to retreat when Admiral Torres opened a general communication channel that reached every sensor platform in the system. "Attention all galactic monitoring stations," she announced, her voice carrying across the political networks that connected dozens of worlds.
"This is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Earth Defense Fleet. We have successfully established access to the Kepler 442b colony for emergency medical assistance."
She paused, letting the implications settle across the galaxy. "Let it be clearly understood that Earth will not tolerate bureaucratic interference with medical assistance to human colonies. Any organization that attempts to block humanitarian aid to Earth citizens will face the full response of our defense forces." The hospital ships were already moving toward the colony, their medical bays preparing to receive patients while their construction teams readied equipment for establishing permanent facilities. But Torres knew the real battle was just beginning.
Throughout the galaxy, intelligence services were analyzing the combat recordings, trying to understand how humans had hidden such advanced military capabilities. Political leaders were reassessing their relationships with Earth's colonial authority.
And military planners were calculating whether their own forces could match what the human fleet had demonstrated. Captain Morrison approached with a concerned expression. "Admiral, we're receiving emergency diplomatic communications from a dozen different species.
The consortium is demanding immediate sanctions against Earth. The Zeltharian hegemony is calling for military retaliation." Torres looked at the tactical display showing her victorious fleet escorting hospital ships toward the colony.
12,000 lives would be saved, but the cost would be measured in political consequences that could last for generations. "Jim, send a message to Earth Command," she ordered.
Mission accomplished. The galaxy now knows that human lives are protected by human guns. Whatever happens next, we'll face it as a species that doesn't abandon its own.
The battle was over, but Admiral Torres understood that she had started something much larger than a rescue mission. She had declared that humanity was no longer a minor species begging for galactic protection. Today, Earth had become a power that demanded respect. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442b, the galaxy had learned to view humanity very differently.
Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Terran Medical Station, watching as another convoy of alien patients arrived seeking treatment at what had become known as the Miracle Facility.
The massive orbital platform represented something unprecedented in galactic politics, a human-controlled medical installation that operated independently of consortium oversight, providing advanced healthcare to any species willing to acknowledge Earth's sovereignty in medical matters. "Dr. Chen," announced Chief Administrator Williams, approaching with the morning's patient reports, "we have 17 new requests for treatment today,
including 3 from Zeltharian nobles seeking our neural pathway regeneration procedures."
Sarah accepted the datapad with a sense of satisfaction that still amazed her.
The same Zeltharian government that had demanded sanctions against Earth was now quietly sending their elite for medical treatments that consortium facilities couldn't provide.
"Any update on the Vraxian trade delegation?" she asked, reviewing the treatment requests.
"They're still negotiating with Admiral Torres about establishing a formal medical exchange program.
Apparently, our success treating their genetic degradation syndrome has convinced their leadership that cooperation might be more profitable than continued hostility." Through the observation windows, Sarah could see the human hospital ships that had saved the Kepler 442b colony now serving as the foundation for a permanent medical infrastructure. Each vessel had been expanded with additional modules, creating a facility that could handle 20,000 patients simultaneously while conducting research that was revolutionizing galactic medicine. The transformation had been remarkable. Within weeks of the battle, species throughout the sector were discovering that human medical technology was decades ahead of anything available through consortium facilities. Neural regeneration, genetic repair, and pathogen treatments that the galaxy's bureaucrats had declared impossible were routine procedures at the Terran Medical Station. Admiral Torres materialized on the observation deck via hologram, her image transmitted from Earth where she was meeting with colonial authority leadership about the expanding human presence in galactic affairs.
"Sarah, how are our patients today?"
Torres asked, her voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who had successfully gambled everything on a single decisive action.
"Better than ever," Admiral. We've successfully treated over 40,000 patients from 18 different species. The waiting list for advanced procedures now extends 6 months. Torres smiled at the report. Any word from the consortium about their new cooperative medical protocols? Sarah laughed at the euphemistic language. The Galactic Medical Consortium had spent 3 months demanding that human medical facilities submit to their oversight before quietly proposing collaborative frameworks that would allow them to save face while accessing human technology. Administrator Vextar submitted another request yesterday for access to our pathogen treatment protocols. He's particularly interested in the neural stabilization procedures we developed for the Crimson Fever. The same procedures he declared impossible when he was busy explaining why human colonists didn't deserve medical assistance? The very same. It seems that saving 12,000 lives in a week has convinced the galaxy that human medicine might be worth studying. Torres's expression turned serious as she addressed the larger implications of their success. Sarah, you realize what we've accomplished here goes far beyond medicine. We've proven that human colonies can operate independently of galactic oversight. That changes everything. The truth of that statement was evident throughout the sector. Human colonies that had previously relied on consortium protection were establishing their own defense and medical facilities. Earth's colonial authority was negotiating directly with alien governments instead of working through galactic bureaucracy. And species that had dismissed humans as primitive were discovering that Earth's technology was often superior to their own. Admiral, Sarah asked, any regrets about starting a diplomatic revolution? Torres considered the question while watching the steady flow of alien medical transports approaching the station. Sarah, I've been thinking about that question for 6 months. The galaxy spent decades treating human lives as expendable. Today, they're discovering that human medicine can extend their own lives by centuries. I call that a fair trade. The political transformation had been dramatic. The Zeltharian hegemony, facing internal pressure from nobles seeking human medical treatment, had quietly dropped their demands for sanctions. The Vraxian trade union was negotiating commercial agreements that recognized Earth as an equal partner rather than a subordinate species. Even the consortium had been forced to acknowledge human medical sovereignty to maintain access to treatments their own facilities couldn't provide. But perhaps the most significant change was in how human colonies viewed themselves. News of the Kepler 442b rescue had spread throughout Earth's settlements, inspiring a new confidence that they were no longer dependent on alien protection or approval. Dr. Chen received a communication alert and activated her personal display. The message was from Captain Morrison aboard the EDF Olympia, which was conducting patrol operations throughout the sector. Dr. Chen, we have another situation developing in the Arcturus system. A human mining colony is reporting equipment failures that could lead to atmospheric contamination. The local consortium office is citing jurisdiction issues that could delay assistance for weeks. Sarah looked at Admiral Torres's hologram, both women understanding the implications immediately. Another test of whether Earth would protect its colonies regardless of galactic bureaucracy. Admiral, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Torres's smile was sharp with anticipation. That the galaxy needs another lesson in human medical philosophy? I'll prepare the emergency medical response teams, Sarah announced, already moving toward the command center. How many hospital ships should I expect you to bring? All of them, Doctor. Plus a few dozen escort vessels to ensure we have proper legal authority for our medical mission. As Admiral Torres's hologram faded, Sarah felt the familiar excitement of knowing they were about to demonstrate once again that human lives had value, and that value was backed by the most advanced medical technology in the galaxy, protected by enough firepower to enforce access to any human colony that needed it. The Arcturus system was about to learn what the rest of the galaxy already knew. When humans called for help, Earth answered with hospital ships and battleships in equal measure. And anyone who tried to prevent that assistance would discover that the best medicine for bureaucratic obstruction was still a proper application of directed energy weapons. The Terran Medical Station continued its operations, treating patients from across the galaxy while serving as a symbol of humanity's transformation from supplicants to equals. Dr. Chen watched another convoy of alien patients arrive and smiled at the irony. The galaxy had expected medical assistance from humanity and, instead, received something far more valuable, proof that human colonies would never again be abandoned to alien indifference. Today, human medicine was saving lives throughout the sector. But, more importantly, human resolve was ensuring that those lives included every Earth colonist,
regardless of what galactic bureaucrats thought they deserved. The galaxy had learned that when humans promised medical assistance, they delivered it with whatever force was necessary to ensure success. And that lesson was changing the balance of power among the stars forever.